Hi, welcome back to Auburn Online's TigerBytes. I'm your host today, Amy Conway, and once again I have with me Dr. Dave Ketchen from the Harbert College of Business. We learned a little bit about Dave last week, but I have some more information about him that I would like to share for you listeners out there. In 2018, Auburn awarded Dave the Southeastern Conference Faculty Achievement Award, which is the highest overall faculty achievement award that the university offers. He also was awarded at that time the Creative Research and Scholarship Award, which is the highest research award that the university offers. In 2023, Dave was elected as a fellow in the Academy of Management, and he was only the second Auburn professor to earn this distinction and the first since 1979. In 2024, Research.com ranked him 21st in the United States and 36th in the world among the top 1,000 scientists in business and management. So with all of that history, we are thankful that Dave is serving as Auburn Online's inaugural program ambassador.
Sounds like I should ask for a raise.
Well, you can ask. All right, Dave. Today I want to talk about TigerBytes, our podcast. Can you tell us a little bit, me specifically, honestly, a little bit about the inspiration behind wanting to do this podcast, getting it started, and what you hope to achieve with it?
So I have an existing podcast called 20 Minutes of Winning, available on all popular platforms.
Like and subscribe.
And it's done a really good job, I think, of getting some ideas out that my good friend Larry Thornton has developed. He's a multi-unit franchisee for McDonald's in Birmingham. He was also one of the kids that integrated the Montgomery City Schools back in the late 60s. And through that podcast, I think we've been able to reach some folks with some inspirational ideas that he has. And so, with this podcast, I think it's more about best practices in teaching. And so I think there's all across campus some really cool things that people are doing that very few people know about. And so if we can get those folks into the studio, spotlight what they're doing that's unique and powerful, that will in turn expose good ideas to folks who are looking for ways to teach their classes in more compelling and exciting ways.
I like that. I think that's great. And you've answered my next question a little bit, but I want to ask it directly anyway. What would you say makes this podcast, or what will make this podcast unique compared to all the other educational podcasts that are out there?
Well, I think it's going to be the focus on highlighting best practices and trying to also get to know the people we interview a little bit too. So I don't intend to just ask people, what are the fun things you're doing in terms of online teaching, but also get to know them a little bit. Lots of times people have interesting hobbies that nobody knows about. And I think it contributes to the culture of the university if we get to know that other dimension of the people we work with.
I think you're right. And I think that sometimes it's those things outside of the specifically online teaching and learning story that often informs the online teaching and learning story. So we look forward to learning more about the things that are happening at Auburn as well as the people that are making them happen. So who would you say would benefit from listening to your podcast?
Well, clearly everybody on planet Earth would.
Okay, beyond that, maybe a subset.
Subset. Certainly faculty at Auburn would be the obvious constituency, but I also think graduate students could benefit a lot, maybe more so than the faculty, because as a graduate student, you're just starting to formulate your teaching philosophy. You're just starting to put together your teaching materials. And so if you can be more thoughtful and creative up front, that'll set you up to be a really good instructor down the line when you're in a postdoc or a tenure track position or a lectureship or, whatever the case may be. Tenure track faculty who have been around a while, they sort of have their way of doing things. And so adding in some online learning, in some cases sort of a bolt-on situation where we're trying to just improve things. But if you can get somebody who's just starting out in the teaching profession, it might have a lot more impact for them.
Why do you think it's important to highlight the best practices in online teaching and learning at Auburn?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do that are not all that great, and somebody could spend a lot of time trying to sort through different alternatives before arriving at some good alternatives. And of course, one thing you can do to arrive at good alternatives is to engage with the instructional designers at Auburn Online. But if you have some ideas before you have that conversation about what faculty are doing that works well, that discussion's probably going to go better.
That's true. One of the things that I like to always ask faculty that I work with is, what are their big dreams? What is their vision for the course? What are the things that they like about their face-to-face course that they want to keep? What are the things that they'd like to improve on? And so if faculty have already started thinking about those things, they could definitely makes that conversation more meaningful, and it jumpstarts the design process. So I think that's great. Can you share what examples of innovative online teaching and learning are you aware of that you plan to showcase at Auburn?
Well, I mean, a lot of them I haven't discovered yet because they're out there.
That's a good answer.
Being
They're
done
out
by
there.
other people, and so yeah, we'll have to find what people are up to. But I think one of the things that I really enjoy are interactive exercises, and of course you know this because we do a lot of them in the courses that we develop together. But it's a really great way to apply the ideas that are being developed. And so just as one example, real simple example, in the winning skills course, we've sort of divided things into hard skills like spreadsheets, soft skills like leadership and interpersonal relationships, et cetera. And so we have an interactive in that course where we present people with a bunch of skills and they have to drag it into those two categories, and then the system tells them how many they got right, and so if you get all 8 of those right, you feel pretty good. Okay, I've mastered this distinction. If you get 2 out of 8 right, you might need to go back and revisit your understanding of hard skills and soft skills. Another thing that I really like is the ability to interview highly accomplished people and use clips of those interviews in courses. It gives you a lot better exposure than simply having the professor lecture about what it takes to be successful. If I can show you a 3-minute video clip of somebody who's been a chief executive officer in a company, made millions of dollars, created thousands of jobs, I think that's really impactful.
And they get to hear it from you. They get to hear it from someone in their field potentially. So yeah, that's good. And the interactive elements, I like those too because they provide a no stakes way for students to assess their own understanding. So they don't lose anything if they don't get the points. They just can have a better sense of, maybe I better study this a little bit more.
And you can keep trying until you get 100%.
Keep trying. That's right. And then you feel good about yourself. All right. What kind of impact do you hope this podcast will have on the faculty and students at Auburn?
I just hope it'll encourage people to give these things a try. I think change is difficult. Change is hard. Trying new things is hard. But if you're presented with some evidence that making the change will be beneficial to you and to your students, I think people will be a little bit more willing to try things.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you go into the grocery store, you go into Publix and there's Coca-Cola Oreo.
Some things you don't have to try.
But if you have a friend who says, on the surface that looks disgusting, but I tried it and it's actually really good, that might inspire you to take that soda off the shelf, put it on your cart, and give it a try. I have not tried it, by the way.
I guess in that particular situation, it would depend on the friend and if it is truly a friend. I have my doubts about that one. But as far as trying online learning, no doubts about that. just to make that clear.
It's as sweet as Oreo cookies.
We need a new tagline, Dave. That's no good. All right. So, what excites you the most about hosting this podcast? Because I will not be the guest. I will not be the host forever. In time, Dave will take over hosting. So, what excites you the most about hosting this podcast and interviewing faculty about their teaching practices?
I think I'm really good at asking questions, and I think I'm good at asking questions that catch people off guard, that lead them to reveal things they might not reveal typically, that viewers and listeners would find interesting.
So we need to let our guests know that before they come on the show.
No, it's better if they don't.
Okay. Well, I think that your audience will enjoy that aspect as well. Okay, one last question for today. How do you anticipate and plan on engaging with your audience to participate in this conversation? So the best podcasts or the best I would say the best podcast, there's a way for your audience to engage with you, to provide feedback. How do you plan on engaging with your audience?
I thought a dunk tank might be pretty good.
Tell me more.
Where we can, set up a dunk tank on Toomer's Corner. And if you've watched a certain number of podcast episodes, then you get to...
Who gets dunked? No, because I'm only the guest host temporarily. And I asked you how you plan to engage with the audience. A dunk tank is an idea. Yeah, for sure.
Not necessarily a good idea, but it's an idea. I think we're going to be promoting this pretty heavily on social media, and we're going to be providing ways for people to suggest guests, suggest questions, offer topics that they're interested in learning about. And, I intend to be really responsive in terms of trying to satisfy whatever sort of requests come our way.
That sounds great. I think people will enjoy having the opportunity to make suggestions from people they'd like to hear from more, as well as, like you said, ask specific questions that you could then pose to your guests.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great opportunity for people to learn what's going on in other colleges. We don't always have a whole lot of those opportunities. The university puts out publications, like there's a research magazine that goes out twice a year. And I'm not just mentioning that because I'm featured in the next issue. It's a good magazine, even when I'm not included.
I'm sure it is.
But I don't know how many people, read those kind of things cover to cover. But, this will be a way to get to know the professor, know the scientist in a more three-dimensional, deep way than just reading an article about them.
I think that's good. I think people will appreciate that. All right. Well, that is all we have time for today. On our next episode of TigerBytes, we're going to be learning more about Dave's history with online learning and kind of his vision in the classes that he develops. So we'll hope you'll tune in. Again, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Like and subscribe. 5 stars. Thanks,
Sounds
everybody.
Like
Hey, y'all. My name's Megan Slatton. I'm an instructional designer with Auburn Online, and I'm here to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about the platform H5P. I love using H5P interactives in my online course design because it not only enhances the online learning environment, but it's also really, really nice as a student to interact with. How do I use it in my everyday practice? I work across the entire campus with all kinds of faculty and all kinds of disciplines. So I'm constantly looking for ways to, break down the cognitive load, both on the faculty side and, of course, on the student side. One way to do that is the various selection of H5Ps that I have at my fingertips. Everything from memory games to flashcards to, even in one instance, crossword puzzles to break down complex material. This way, as a student, I can access each lecture page and not feel overwhelmed by the different concepts that my instructor is trying to get across to me. And I feel more successful at the end when I know I'm going to be assessed on this material. As a faculty member or a subject matter expert, it's an engaging way to creatively connect content to context so that your students are not only more successful in the learning outcomes based on each module or lecture page or week's content, but also you get rave reviews at the end, especially when you use crossword puzzles to break down chemistry equations. So, some of my favorite that I use are in the H5P platform the most accessible, meaning that they adhere not only to our federal standards, but also at Auburn Online, we go above and beyond. I love using course presentation H5Ps to break down and jazz up PowerPoints that typically people will use to talk about what they're trying to teach. Our version of course presentation in H5P is I have more control over images and breaking down those concepts in a way that makes sense to all the learners and users of these online courses that I design. Another favorite one that I like to use is called a hotspot H5P, and it's a way to visually represent large pieces of information in a way that you can access it in your learning preference. So that's a fancy way to say, picture an image on a lecture page and a lot of little dots all around it. And you can click on those dots, and it's the critical piece of information that you need. And as an instructional designer, I know that I'm linking not only visually, but also literally, and sometimes I've even embedded audio clips to help, appeal to all five senses, if you will, in order to break down that content. And just make it more engaging in general. Um, I think other than that, I use essay H5Ps often. It's an easy way to embed those low stakes opportunities to get instant feedback. So instructors can think ahead of different questions that students might have about different parts of the material. And then we can interactively add in a question where you can type in your responses and then hit submit, and you immediately get some kind of feedback that's embedded within the course directly. So you don't have to click away. You don't have to email your instructor. It's just right there on the page for you. And you can revisit that as many times as you need throughout the time in the course. So anyway, yeah, those are my few examples. And I'm sure there are so many more that I could highlight or talk about. But ultimately, H5P is a fantastic platform to enhance that online learning environment.